It was just another cool evening in the Bay Area. The streets were quiet, the only sound being the distant hum of passing cars and the occasional flicker of a streetlight breaking the night's silence. But that peace was shattered by a single phone call, one that would haunt the city forever. The voice on the other end was calm, almost too calm, considering the chilling words it carried. "I want to report a murder. No, actually, a double murder." The dispatcher paused, trying to make sense of the message. The caller, without hesitation, listed details of the crime. Details only the killer could know. A young couple, sitting in a car at a secluded lover's lane, their evening abruptly ending in a violent attack. Then came the haunting words, "I also killed those kids last year. Good luck finding me." And just like that, the line went dead. What had just happened? Who was this caller? And more importantly, was this just the beginning? What investigators would uncover next would only deepen the mystery and terrify an entire nation. A string of chilling incidents, a killer who taunts the police, a name etched in fear. This is Derrick Investigates, and I'm Derrick. Tonight, we dive into one of America's most terrifying unsolved mysteries, the case of the Zodiac Killer, a shadowy figure who struck without warning, letters laced with puzzles and threats, a voice on the line, cold, mocking. Was it a twisted genius at play, or a madman cloaked in riddles? For over 50 years, this case has haunted investigators and captivated the public. Suspects have emerged, clues have been dissected, but the truth, it still slips through our grasp. Join me as we trace the Zodiac's footsteps, decode the messages, and confront the chilling possibility that he may have never left. If the unknown calls to you, like this video and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. To uncover the beginning of this nightmare, we go back to the summer of 1968, when terror first arrived in the Bay Area. In the summer of 1968, two teenagers, Betty Lou Jensen, just 16 years old, and her boyfriend, 17-year-old David Faraday, set out on what seemed like an ordinary evening in the rural hills of Vallejo, California. It was a quiet town, where the sound of cicadas filled the air and the night seemed to stretch on endlessly, offering peace to its inhabitants. Neither of them could have known that that evening would be their last. Betty Lou was described as a friendly, fun-loving teenager, always surrounded by her circle of friends. Her life was just beginning, full of possibilities and dreams. David, a shy young man with a bright future, was the kind of boy every parent would want for their daughter. They had been dating for only a few months, yet their bond was strong, innocent, carefree, and filled with the anticipation of the future. It was December 20th, 1968, when they went on a simple date, nothing extravagant. Just the two of them driving up to a secluded area on a hilltop, known to locals as the Blue Rock Springs Park. They were enjoying each other's company, but little did they know that their peaceful night would soon turn into an unfathomable nightmare. This serene scene, under the blanket of stars, was shattered when an unknown assailant approached their car. In an instant, the air turned cold, and the sound of gunfire rang out into the night. Betty Lou and David had no chance. Their lives were taken in the blink of an eye. David died almost immediately, but Betty Lou fought desperately, only to succumb to her injuries moments later. The peaceful town of Vallejo would never be the same, and this was only the beginning. The events of that night shook not only the small community of Vallejo, but the entire state of California. A killer, shrouded in darkness, had emerged from the shadows, and no one knew who he was or why he had struck. Was it random? Was it personal? Was there a message hidden somewhere in the carnage? These questions began to swirl, but no answers were forthcoming. What followed were only more questions. A chilling silence lingered over the case. No witnesses, no suspects, no clues to follow. The only evidence left behind were the two victims, their lives tragically cut short, and a community that could no longer feel safe in its quiet, familiar streets. The attack at Blue Rock Springs Park marked the beginning of a horrifying series of crimes that would leave the region in fear. Yet what made this case all the more chilling was not just the brutality of the act, but what came after. It was July 4th, 1969, when the world would learn of another brutal attack, this time at Lake Herman Road, just outside of Vallejo. It had been just a few months since the tragic events at Blue Rock Springs Park, but this time, the killer would leave behind something different, something that would send chills down the spine of anyone who heard of it. On this fateful night, two teenagers, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Margot, were parked in a secluded area near the lake, much like Betty Lou and David had been. They had no idea that their evening would soon take a deadly turn. The killer approached their car, wearing dark clothing and a strange mask, making him a faceless, terrifying figure. Darlene was shot first, then Michael. But this time the killer didn't stop after the initial shots. He fired again, ensuring they were both incapacitated. Then, as he left the scene, he did something unexpected. He called the police, reporting the attack himself. He gave chilling details of the crime, taunting the officers with his ability to escape without being caught. But there was more. The killer didn't just leave a crime scene, he left a message. A cryptogram, which the police would later struggle to decipher, was found alongside the report. The Zodiac Killer, as he would soon be known, was no longer just a shadow in the night. He had claimed responsibility for this attack and another, signaling his presence with a chilling confidence. But who was he, and why did he strike? The killer's cryptic letters and taunting phone calls to the police would soon become a signature of his, and the public's fascination with his identity would only grow as he continued to elude authorities. His cryptograms, riddled with symbols and encoded messages, became an obsession for detectives and the public alike. They contained chilling demands, and each letter he sent seemed to mock the very people trying to catch him. Was it a game for him? Was he playing with the authorities? Or was he sending a deeper message, something only he understood? One of the most unsettling aspects of the Zodiac's behavior was his ability to remain unseen. His letters were chilling in their detail, and yet his true identity remained a complete mystery. As the Zodiac Killer's crimes continued, the fear and uncertainty only deepened. No one knew who he was, or even what his motive might have been. Was it a desire for power, a craving for control, or something more sinister, hidden within the complex web of his cryptic messages and phone calls? Each attack seemed to be followed by another letter, another cryptic clue, and more taunts. Yet the police could not find any concrete evidence that could lead them to the killer's identity. His strange cryptic symbols only left more questions. And with each passing day, the mystery of who the Zodiac Killer truly was deepened. Was he still out there, taunting the authorities with his dark games? Was the killer someone close to the victims, or was he a stranger with a terrifying desire to remain unseen? As investigators began to piece together the timeline of the killings, they would discover something even more disturbing. The Zodiac appeared to thrive on the attention his crimes generated. But the most disturbing aspect of it all was that after each crime, he seemed to vanish into the shadows. There was never enough to catch him. The police had no solid leads, only more questions, more cryptograms, and more chilling calls. What was his next move? And more importantly, could anyone stop him before the next tragedy unfolded? The Zodiac Killer's first victims, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, were just the beginning. The early days of the investigation seemed routine. Law enforcement, detectives, and local authorities scoured the crime scene, collecting evidence and interviewing potential witnesses. But as time passed, something unsettling began to emerge. The killer wasn't just some random criminal. There was a disturbing pattern, a chilling level of precision, and an untraceable quality to his actions that baffled investigators. Early on, the authorities believed they were dealing with a typical case of violent crime. But as the killings piled up, it became evident that this was no ordinary murderer. Strange details began to surface, and each subsequent crime scene only deepened the mystery. At the scene of the Lake Herman Road attack, the first puzzling clue appeared, a peculiar marking on the victim's car, which seemed to have been made deliberately, but there was no clear explanation as to what it meant. Police were left with more questions than answers. The same feeling lingered after the Blue Rock Springs Park murders, where an unsettling pattern seemed to emerge, but no one could decipher its meaning. Then, In the aftermath of the Zodiac's phone call to the police after the Lake Herman Road attack, investigators were left with another chilling detail. The killer had taken pleasure in speaking with the officers. This wasn't just a person fleeing the scene in fear. This was someone who wanted to be heard, someone who wanted to control the narrative. Could this be an indication of the killer's ego, his need for recognition, or was it something else entirely? The more detectives dug into the case, the more dead ends they encountered. Every lead seemed to vanish into thin air. Eyewitnesses reported strange figures or vehicles near the crime scenes, but none of the descriptions ever seemed to match. The killer appeared to have an uncanny ability to evade capture, and his cryptic letters only served to muddy the waters further. One of the most unsettling aspects of the case was the Zodiac's cryptograms. They were filled with symbols, patterns, and codes that no one could seem to crack. The letters taunted law enforcement with their complexity, and while some were deciphered over time, others remained an enigma. What was the killer trying to say? Was it an invitation, a riddle, or was it something darker, a twisted form of self-expression? As the months passed, the investigation took many turns. Detectives spoke to countless suspects, and many theories emerged. Some believed the killer was someone who had a personal vendetta against the victims, while others speculated that the Zodiac was merely driven by a need for chaos and attention. However, despite all these theories, the biggest question remained unanswered. Who was the Zodiac Killer? As the Zodiac Killer's reign of terror continued, the pressure on law enforcement grew. The killer had struck again in July 1969, leaving another pair of victims, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau, near Lake Berryessa, and once again, he had escaped, this time leaving behind a series of cryptic messages that seemed to mock the police. It was clear that the Zodiac was not just a serial killer, he was playing a game with the authorities. Despite their best efforts, law enforcement had no leads. Investigators were left grasping at straws. They combed through thousands of hours of witness statements, reviewed every piece of physical evidence, and ran countless theories past experts. Yet, nothing seemed to point directly to a suspect. The case quickly grew colder, with each passing day drawing more distance between the investigators and any potential breakthrough. In the years following the killings, the Zodiac Killer's taunting letters only intensified. He continued to send cryptograms, letters to newspapers, and phone calls to police, each one becoming more cryptic, each one designed to frustrate and confuse. One of the most chilling pieces of evidence to come from the Zodiac was his ability to mimic the police's language, playing along with their investigation. At one point, he even claimed responsibility for additional murders, though there was no way to verify his claims. It was as though the killer wanted to prove that not only was he eluding the authorities, but he was also smarter than them. The cryptograms became the focal point of the investigation. Some were eventually solved, revealing messages that hinted at the killer's psyche and motivations, but others remained undecoded. What did the unsolved codes mean? Were they a clue to his identity or simply a part of his twisted game? As investigators followed every lead and tried to piece together a pattern from the cryptic letters and the various crime scenes, they began to explore other possibilities. Was the Zodiac connected to any known criminal organizations? Was he a disgruntled former law enforcement officer? Could he be someone with a deep personal history that made him particularly hard to catch? But as years went by, more questions emerged, and fewer answers seemed to materialize. New theories were proposed, some more outlandish than others. Investigators even began to consider that the Zodiac could have been more than one person, or perhaps someone with a history of mental illness or a deep-seated grudge. With each failed lead, frustration mounted. The question lingered, haunting the authorities. Could the Zodiac Killer be caught, or was he simply too clever, too elusive to ever be brought to justice? Despite the passage of time, the mystery remains unsolved. The Zodiac Killer's identity remains a chilling enigma, leaving a trail of unanswered questions. And so, the case persists as one of the most baffling and infamous unsolved mysteries in history. The Zodiac Killer had eluded capture for over a decade, leaving behind a trail of cryptic letters, cryptograms, and haunting phone calls that kept investigators, reporters, and the public gripped in suspense. Yet, just when it seemed like the case had come to a standstill, an unexpected breakthrough emerged. In 2007, a team of retired detectives and cryptographers decided to take a fresh look at the Zodiac's letters. Using new technology and forensic methods, they began to reanalyze the codes, hoping to unlock a piece of the mystery that had stumped authorities for so long. A breakthrough came with the solving of one of the Zodiac's most infamous ciphers, the 340-character cipher, by a group of amateur codebreakers in 2020. The message revealed a chilling statement from the killer, who referred to himself as the killer of all those people and expressed his satisfaction with the terror he caused. While the message didn't provide the killer's identity, it served as a chilling reminder of the darkness behind the crimes and raised more questions than answers. Was the Zodiac still alive? Had he been living in plain sight for decades? The revelation reopened the case, breathing new life into the investigation, but only deepening the mystery. Despite this major development, questions surrounding the Zodiac Killer's true identity remain unanswered. Was the message just a taunt, or did it offer a glimpse into the killer's psyche? What did the Zodiac mean when he referred to himself as the killer of all those people? Could he have been hiding in plain sight for years, or was he an individual who had long since disappeared from the public eye? The police, while re-examining old leads and considering the new discoveries, have yet to solve the case. The killer's true identity remains an elusive specter, haunting the investigation like a shadow that refuses to dissipate. Even after decades of relentless effort by law enforcement, experts, and the public, the mystery persists. Authorities have acknowledged their efforts, but their success remains limited. Local police departments, along with federal agencies like the FBI, have been involved in the search, but the killer's careful evasion and the passage of time have made it difficult to secure solid leads. The investigation has seen many twists and turns, from suspect identifications to dead-end theories, but nothing has definitively pointed to a resolution. The emotional toll on the victims' families and the community cannot be overstated. The case has never stopped affecting those who lost loved ones, leaving behind not only the terror of the crimes, but the ongoing uncertainty that accompanies an unsolved case. The survivors, families, and even the broader public have carried the burden of the Zodiac's twisted game. In Vallejo, where the Zodiac's first crimes occurred, the community came together in the face of fear and uncertainty. Despite the years that passed, local residents held vigils, supported one another, and raised awareness, hoping for the closure that had long been denied. The city's resilience in the face of such terror and the determination to uncover the truth has never waned. Families of the victims continue to advocate for justice, never losing hope that the killer will eventually be brought to light. The Zodiac Killer's case is far from over. While new developments keep the mystery alive, many are left with more questions than answers. As the investigation continues, one question lingers. Will the true identity of the Zodiac Killer ever be revealed, or will it remain an unsolved enigma forever? Decades of investigation, dozens of cryptic messages, and a mystery that refuses to fade. The story of the Zodiac Killer is more than just an unsolved case. It's a lingering shadow over the pursuit of truth. Despite the suspects, the theories, and the tireless efforts of investigators, one reality remains. Some questions may never be fully answered. Thank you for joining us here at Derrick Investigates. Your support fuels our mission to explore the most compelling and unresolved mysteries and to give voice to the questions that history has yet to settle. The Zodiac case stands as a stark reminder of how complex justice can be, how uncertainty, fear, and fascination can coexist for generations. So we ask you, could the identity still be hidden in plain sight? Was the truth buried by time, or is it still waiting to be discovered? What do you believe happened? And could there be more that we've yet to uncover? At Derrick Investigates, our mission is to shine a light on the unexplained, to honor those lost, and to seek the answers that may still be out there. If this case intrigued you, let us know. Like, comment, and subscribe to stay on the trail of more unsolved mysteries. Together, we can keep these voices alive and shine a light on the forgotten. Until next time. stay curious, stay questioning, and never stop searching for the truth. I'm Derrick, and I'll be back soon with another investigation.